2, 1, mic and cue.
Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the Chatbox Live, Vail's only podcast that really listens to everybody here in our community with regards to mental health and wellness and emotional situations as well. I'm Liz Farron. My host, Jen, is off today, but I have three lovely ladies here. And today is a very important discussion. We're coming to you live on YouTube from the TV8 studios. And if you miss YouTube today, you get to see us after Good Morning Live on Saturdays and Sundays. And of course, all social media. Now, we have a very special panel today. We are going to talk about something very sensitive, but very important at the same time. We are looking at suicide awareness here in our community. I literally heard something that startled me. Numbers, I'm not gonna give statistics because I don't know the real deal, but what I heard was staggering, and it scared me and it upset me. And before I get into all of that, I want to introduce everybody. I have three very brave ladies with me today, and I just want to thank you guys for coming in and sharing some stories that we're going to hear. I think that if we can help even one person that's struggling right now, this is why I have chosen to do the chat box. I've been through a lot of really crazy things in life, which we all have, but my way of giving back was for me to start this podcast and see if we can give a hand to people that are struggling emotionally or with their mental health here in our community. And for some reason, this magical, beautiful place is filled with darkness. It's filled with sadness. It's filled with emotional upheaval. And what's happening in the world isn't helping. And what a lot of people, I feel, don't understand is that if they move here because they want to move to this magical place and be all better, you're still taking everything with you. It doesn't matter where you are in life. You have it, and you have to do the work. Okay, so I'm going to start off with this beautiful lady here. This is Sherry Conway, and you have a wonderful story to tell. Sherry and Debbie. Debbie, your last name again?
Hoffman.
Hoffman, thank you, sweetie. Sherry and Debbie do work at All Points North, which is a health facility for people. It's not for everybody's pocketbook, but there's a bigger reason why you two are here. I'm going to say that in a minute. And then Leslie from Speak Up, Reach Out.
Yes.
I can't thank you enough for responding to my email. When I heard about things that have been going on just this past week and all the losses that we've been having, I said, we have to take a stand. We have to talk about it. We really do. We had Chicken Man on the other day, and he had previously was suicidal. And that is why this man dresses up in a people wonder what's wrong with this guy. Well, guess what? Dresses up in a chicken suit in 80-degree weather just to send a message to give people help. So whatever we can do, whatever our purpose is in life, it's to help, and that's why you three ladies are here, and I appreciate that. Now, I understand, Debbie and Sherry, you guys went to All Points North because you want to give back. You've been through your own traumatic experiences, whether it was suicide or attempting or anything like that, and I know that you've also been through, I don't know a lot about you yet, Debbie, which I will, and Sherry, I've known you a long time, so I know that you've been through self-medication and all the other crap that goes along with trying to fix yourself when you don't have the proper guidance, and that's why we're here. So I know that you sobered and you wanted to get yourself just living a good life again. And I'm very impressed and I'm very proud of you for taking the job that you ended up in, because who knew that when you're working with people that are going through stuff, it not only does it help you, but then you figure out how you're going to help others. And I think that's wonderful. And do you mind sharing your story with us without crying? Should we get tissues?
No, I'm good. I have had
tissues from here.
No, I'll be all right.
Okay. So yeah, let's talk about what you went through a little bit. You don't have to go into full-on detail, but just it's been years, and you are still here. And you are one hell of a survivor, and that's why I have you here today.
When I was younger, my mom fought mental health. She had a lot of issues. There was no awareness to it then.
Right.
I was in my early 20s. She was in and out of lockdown facilities, tried to hang herself a few times.
Wow.
When I was 22, she took her life. So that was hard.
My
that
hair
was
is
extremely hard.
I mean, I don't even know how to understand how something like that can be dealt with as almost a teenager. You're still a teenager almost, and then your mom does this.
There was no awareness. It was a shame. It was
right.
a shame.
And people would call people who took their lives selfish because nobody understood that you're not thinking about other people at the time. Your brain is wired in such a way that it's not like you're going, oh, I wonder if my mom's going to be mad. That's not how you're feeling and thinking at the time. You're thinking about getting out of the pain and out of the anguish or whatever the darkness is.
Yeah.
So
in the last minute, you do what you need to do.
right. So how did you process it as a 22-year-old?
I didn't.
You didn't?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I was married a couple years later and had the kids and just kind of let it be.
So you didn't work any on it, you just kind of tucked it away.
I tucked it away.
And what did that do for your psyche?
I was horrible. I
Right.
ended up in rehab.
Okay. Well, and that's why I asked.
Yes.
Because if we don't find help and if we don't look for magical people that are out here in our community that can take our hands and hold our hands and get us through stuff.
Yes. And
Then
I
we don't
met
have to
a
go through all that.
hippie therapist in Glenwood.
I like
And
that, a hippie
just
therapist.
a hippie, Woodstock hippie therapist.
Nice.
And she pulled it all out.
Wow.
And saved
Didn't
my
you
life.
do ayahuasca?
I did do ayahuasca
Is that
years ago.
helpful for
That-
mental health?
Yes. That I did that after Dan passed away.
Okay, now Dan
and
is a
then-
whole nother story. So we can lead up to Dan, but let me see. So you did a lot of self-medicating
Oh, totally.
after your mom, and then so you got married and had 2 beautiful kids.
Thank you.
And now she's a grandma. But during that course, you didn't do any work with your mom from what happened with your mom.
No, not until I ended up in rehab. But you know,
Okay.
it's just things just started getting worse and worse and worse. And
Okay.
I was like this I was never this big partier in college or
Right.
anything like that ever,
Right.
ever. And I was like, okay. I mean, I was running as fast as I could,
I get that. I do. 'Cause
and it
when
caught up with me
When you
hard.
don't have to deal with it, you think you're doing okay, but you don't realize what it's tearing you up inside.
Oh, it will destroy you.
Yeah, I know that. And so here you are. You finally feel like you've made a little progress and you find the love of your life.
The high school sweetheart, and then I got
Oh.
hit again. Yeah, we're just divorced, but getting along well. You know, Dan and I knew each other since I was 15, and then it happened again. But in that process, I learned how I could try to help. But I got them in different places, different institutions. Reached out. There really was nothing in the valley then. That was 15 years ago. There was no help.
Right.
And to the help of just him self-medicating, it just tipped him over the edge.
Yeah. And like we said, he didn't think what he was going to leave behind, 2 children
Oh, he has a
and an ex-wife, but really a best friend.
fabulous father.
Yeah, no.
Fabulous.
I mean, from what all
You
the
know my
stories I've heard,
kids.
and a lot of you might have heard of Dan Conway. He's been super loved and well renowned here in our community for so many years, and y'all had the Conway Cup for so many years until COVID came around and wrecked everything.
Yes.
But so I mean, the awareness after Dan took his life, I feel like that was one of his purposes.
That was.
Because as soon as somebody that was a
Yes.
big pillar of our community did something like that, oh, everybody's eyes opened. And the stigma started wearing off a little bit. Because if Stan Conway,
Yeah.
whoa,
Yeah.
what are the rest of us going to do?
Absolutely.
You know? And so your brave self managed to get through that. And I know you fell a few times.
I did.
But you pulled yourself back out.
Yes, I did.
And the best thing you could have ever done for your life is take a job at a place where you can help people and guide
Absolutely.
people and just,
Absolutely.
like I said, take their hand and be there for them.
Just if you can, in general, Liz, if you can, somebody calls you up that's a friend, we know a lot of people in the valley and is struggling, I will drop whatever I can to go talk to them. And you've seen me do it.
I have.
And if I can just sit with them and help them, that's all I'm trying to do
This
for the
is
rest of my life.
beautiful, and it's so amazing. And I mean, I want to do what you're doing, and I'm doing this right now. But I mean, I've witnessed a suicide when I was 7 years old. I've had so many traumatic instances that I've had. This is a weird dichotomy. I'm very afraid of death, but there's so many times I have said, I wish I could just go to bed and never wake up. I don't think I could do the actual act because I'm afraid of death, but it's weird. It's
And
like
that's a good thing.
that is a good thing. But the thing is that you want to give up. You want to just let it all go. You want to get the sadness and the anger and the depression away, the anxiety, all of it. You just want it to go away, and you think, if I could just go to sleep. And then I wake up, I'm like, fuck.
But the end result to that, you've seen me suffer. You've seen my children suffer.
Right,
You've
and
seen
so that is something that if you are wired to the point where you know that if you sit down and you say, well, if I did this, but like I say, and I'm not a clinician, so I don't understand how the brain works, but I do believe that if you are in the throes of such a deep, dark depression, I talked to Kim Rowe, who passed away a few years ago. I was on the phone with her the night before, begging her to just go to sleep and stop flipping, and I did not help her.
Yeah,
And
she
I
reached
live
out
with
to
that.
me, and I tried to help too.
And
but
there's
she
some
was-
people that I think that they are just in a place that, once again, I didn't feel like there was enough places for people to reach out here in our community, and I feel like maybe she fell into that. And that's why we're going to stop this.
But I did do, like you said, 4 years ago, I think, I did an ayahuasca trip.
And now what does that do? I'm just curious, because I just think of a bunch of people in a circle vomiting, so I don't know.
It includes that.
See, you do throw up.
It's a plant-based medicine out of Peru. It is done with trained shamans, and it makes you face. You don't have a choice. You're not in control. You're not in control of anything.
Wow.
You're not in control of throwing up. You're not in control of what's going on. It's not a psychedelic trip.
Right.
It's a trauma-based work.
How does it know where to go? Do you know what I mean?
I'm not quite sure.
But it worked.
Oh, it worked.
That's amazing.
And it changed my whole life. It
Well,
just
you
lightened
have had
me
a
up.
new peace and calm about your personality since then, and it's sorry, I'm digging into my chest here. You used to be a little frenetic,
Yeah.
little like me. I'm like,
That's why we were always thinking,
and I always want to do that, try the ayahuasca, but I won't throw up in front of people, so I have a problem.
you won't have a choice.
That's why I'm not going. But you were always a little zippy and doodah and all that, and you just have a new comment. This was a few years ago that you did this, and it still holds. Now, I'm not saying that this is something that everybody should run out and try, go see a shaman.
Absolutely.
But the reason why we do this podcast is to bring up all kinds of ways for people to digest and say, well, maybe that's good for me, or maybe this is good for me. We don't know until we try, but the fact is that we just have to try. And we just have to get ourselves better, and we have to do some work on
the trauma
ourselves.
to the forefront, and you can't control it.
Wow. And what do you do?
Whatever's
Just
you
experience
can't
it and get
control
over it?
Yes,
Or
yes.
okay. I've had EMDR through a therapist, and that is a quiet thing where you think about your trauma, and they do these little zappy things, and it made an incredible difference with my stuff. So there's just so many interesting ways, and I'm so happy, and I really do appreciate you coming here and explaining to people, look, another person is here telling this story, and this is why I'm really, really, this is so important. Debbie, I want to thank you so much for being so brave and coming in and telling us your story. Now, Debbie also works at APN.
Yes.
And you also decided to you're actually training as a therapist,
I
correctly?
am, yes, art
That's
therapist.
Huge. Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh my God, my heart!
Yeah.
Oh my God, you don't even know. I just
yeah.
went a little
Yes.
ballistic
An-
inside.
An art therapist. So.
I think that art is so healing. Music,
Absolutely.
art, poetry,
Yes.
all of that. So let us know what made you come into the decision of becoming a therapist to help people that are going through this.
It was pretty much from my own mental health struggles
Okay.
and my own suicide attempts here in the Valley. 2018, 2019 were kind of my
Really?
really rough years.
I'm sorry.
I'm here. I'm.
I know,
you
but I'm still,
everything's-
I'm sad,
But
but
thank
I'm
you.
happy.
Thank
Does that
you,
make
yes.
sense?
And it's one of those, even with Sherry mentioning of like her ayahuasca trip of whatever, of like bringing the trauma to the forefront. At least when we're talking about suicide, that is not what needs to be done
Right.
at the start.
No.
Oh, if that
of
is
course.
something, once we are stable enough to
Right.
address what those traumas are,
I would venture to think
because
so.
that if we hit that trauma first, that's going to
That's gonna blow your.
spiral us even more.
That's what I was thinking
Even
too. I
more,
think you have to be
so
on
I
a
just
standard,
wanna
like a grounded
kinda,
place.
kind of put that in there.
Yeah.
That, it's been years to get her to that grounded place
That's
to then
correct.
deal with her mom,
Right.
and stuff. So it's
Right,
not.
you
it's
don't
not
just say, "Wow, I'm sad. I'm going to go do an ayahuasca."
Right.
No.
No.
correct. Correct. So I just
Thank you
wanted
for
to put
bringing that up. No, that's
Smart
really
point.
important. We need to know that. We need to know
Yes.
that you have to have, a space in your place that you know that you are grounded and you're healing.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So same thing. 2019, there really weren't a lot of opportunities for help in the valley.
And it was
I'm-
expensive, the ones you could find.
Yes.
Correct. And APN wasn't even up and running yet
No,
at
they
the time I
weren't
moved
there
in.
yet. And there's
They were still kind of getting to that place, so there really was no place
Right.
for me to go.
okay.
So I actually went to Atlanta for a few months to kind of do my own residential recovery.
And what made you decide that it was time to go get yourself into some sort of recovery?
I would say after I was released from the hospital and walked back into my house
Yeah.
and went, nothing really has changed. Of
Goosies.
but it's one of those things. Nothing has changed. If I want to live, I am going to have to do something different
100%.
because at this point in time, that's not what I want.
Good.
So my kids were 7 and 9 at the time
Wow.
as well. So that was I had a lot of support from my husband
Nice.
as well. But it's very difficult. And even when you mention of just kind of like the selfishness as well.
But I don't
of-
think it is selfish.
No.
People have thought of that, and some people still do, and I want to break that stigma.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I don't
It's
think
not.
it's selfish.
It's
and
not at
and
all.
and my challenge is when people used to tell me I was selfish, I took it as more guilt and shame of I really should not be here anymore
Oh.
either. If I'm not thinking about my kids and putting my kids first when I am having trouble getting out of bed every day, that is one of the challenges of then when it comes to like
Exactly.
someone thinks you're selfish of just, well, then I'm really not worth anything anymore anyway, so what's the point?
Now you are, and you know it.
So absolutely.
How did your
Absolutely.
kids react? Did they know what you did? Or did they just think mommy got sick?
I'm not exactly sure what they know.
Okay.
I mean, they know I was sick. They know I had to go away. They know, we do talk about mental health a lot in my
Good.
house.
Good, because you don't know if it's genetic passed down anyway.
Correct, absolutely. And, with me leaving as well, of just like trying to get the support system for my kids in place for me being gone.
Right, I get that.
As well, of just kind of like, okay, well, is mom going to talk to us today? Is mom going to get out of bed today?
Oh.
Like,
That's
that
hard
is
for them.
always the challenge of just like, is mom going to interact or not interact? And, it's taken a few years, to really kind of get back to
Like rebuild a
yeah,
great
hey, it's a
relationship.
powder day, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, it's not normally, because I probably took 2 or 3 years off from not being on the mountain, not being on my mountain bike, not really
Aw.
hiking, of just kind of like, I'm okay just being okay.
Hey,
So-
whatever it takes. I mean, it's great when depression puts
Yes.
us in a place where we don't want to get up and do our fun things. But if
Absolutely.
we are in the middle of healing and we are doing self-care, sometimes we just have to, that's all we can
Right.
focus on.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, it's not even, it's a selfless act.
Yes.
I do not have kids, but I can't even imagine I have a lot of mental illness. And
We all do. It's
We all do.
okay.
Everybody
it's
does.
okay. We
But
all
what
do.
I'm saying is I couldn't even imagine. I mean, my dog gets upset when I'm upset. I can't imagine if I had kids around what I would put them through. So I'm really grateful that you're here because I think that your kids got a little stronger a little earlier than they probably normally
Yes,
would. And that's
absolutely.
okay.
Yes.
You grew up pretty quick and your kids grew up pretty quick. And that's the one thing about survivors of people who are survived by somebody who
Yes.
has taken their life, that it can either take them down or it can make them
Yes.
very powerful,
Right.
very strong, very in tune, very aware, and very conscientious of not going down that rabbit hole as well. But mental illness is mental illness. And if it's something that is, you can't help it.
Right.
You know, I mean, what people don't understand is that it's the same thing as having any other kind of illness.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I think we're breaking that barrier now today more than ever
Yes.
with it, but we have a long way to go. I mean, I just keep hearing stories after story, almost after 14 days, and you probably know statistics, and so
Some,
I'm going to go
yes.
to you on that. But I mean, it breaks my heart. I know 14 people since I've moved here 16 years ago that have ended their lives. That's a lot, and that's
That
not
is a
even
lot.
touching the amount of people that have actually done it. And this is just in our valley. So imagine the temperature that we're all having right now. Not the heat index, I'm talking about taking the temperature of how people feel about what's going on in our country.
Right,
You know, I made a
right.
joke on Facebook the other day. What has anybody thought about unplugging America and plugging it back in? Maybe we can all reset, you know. But so with that on top of what everybody's already going through, I think that it's even more exacerbated. And I'm very worried. I have anxiety about people in our community right now. I'm very afraid for people that are not in a good place right now, that are struggling, and then they see all the other things that are coming about. So that adds on top of what they've already been dealing with.
Yes.
Whether it's childhood trauma, whether it's addiction, whether it is something that's just happened, death, loss, anything. It could be so many things that can change your, I mean, first of all, what I didn't know until I started my podcast in January, trauma can change your DNA. Extreme trauma can literally change your DNA. Like, that's mind-blowing, because there's nobody in my family that ever had any ideology, I haven't bit my tongue, ideologies or anything like that. I feel like I'm the only one. I feel like I'm the only one that really just wanted everything to end so many times. And everybody else is like, you know, like they just don't have any mental illness, and it's just bizarre. And so I just feel like it can be brought on at any time of life. It's not something that you're born with. I mean, there are some of us that were born wired that way, and then there are people that develop it from trauma. And you can have trauma in the middle of your life, like at 45 years old, you can experience trauma, and then all of a sudden, what's happening? What's happening in my brain? Why am I like this? And why am I depressed? And having depressive episodes and the anxiety and spiraling. And before I get to you, Leslie, Debbie, I want to ask you, how do you feel today, and how did you overcome all of your thoughts?
I feel great today. I'm being proactive,
Okay.
really, and then kind of that same thing of trying to build community.
Nice.
So at least for me to switch my career to be a clinician, an art therapist, it was my treatment team and the art therapy is what kind of brought me out of my shell of actually speaking, right? Having something tangible to look at and do and put effort in without having to just do talk therapy.
Yes. Not everybody can do
it's
that.
The best it's the best thing ever.
So can you explain a little bit how art therapy works?
I can. So
She's so cute.
I know.
I can, and I will.
yes. So, like if we start with some sort of talk therapy of something, there is something on your mind that you want to bring up with your therapist, or that is coming up that you're struggling with. So we will take that and use a creative narrative of whether it's painting, markers, clay, any of the different media materials can bring out a different emotive response as well.
Okay.
And so we can work with a client and kind of bring about those things, because the art doesn't lie.
You're right. I mean,
And so if I'm asking someone to do something and I may only give them 2 or 3 sentences of this is what I'm asking you to do, it's your interpretation of what you do. Then from there, now we have something between the client, the art therapist, and the art. We have something to talk about
yeah.
and something to look at and say, I see you did this you know, you spent a lot of time on this area right here. What does this mean to you?
Wow.
So a lot of the different things that I think people in talk therapy sometimes try and like hold it in
Or
already.
embellish too much or anything.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it's something of like, I know I don't want to talk about this topic right now, you know, we can get to it in the art and looking at it from a different avenue that is just absolutely spectacular.
I'm so in
That's so
awe
cool.
of this,
So,
isn't it?
so it's just amazing. So I'm excited because I graduate in December. So
Okay, we're gonna have a chat
So-
box party for Debbie.
yeah, we will.
We will.
But I think the biggest thing too, especially in our community, with it being a mountain town, is it's not as easy to build community as people think it is.
Right, because first of all, there's separate chunks of community.
Correct.
Right.
You have your ski people and your snowboard, and they don't even combine.
Correct.
And then you
Correct.
have the wealthies, and then the working class, and then
Yes.
you have the even a different side of things. People who are really struggling, and
So with all these little tiny pockets
Yeah.
within this very tiny community, it's very difficult. And I think that's one of the challenges of like the stigmas that we need to like get rid of
Yeah.
those labels. I think really for anything of just, as Sherry mentioned, of like if somebody's struggling, I'm going to sit there and give them the space and listen, because sometimes that's all they need.
you're right.
They need somebody to just pay attention.
But the first few words you said are the most important. They need somebody.
Yes.
I can't
Absolutely.
stop getting the goosebumps.
Yes.
We all need somebody, and even if we don't think we do, we do.
Yes.
And I mean, I know that's why. I mean, Speak Up, Reach Out. You guys are an organization that just is fabulous. You said you've been there for 3 years. They've been in our community for how long?
For 15. This is our
Okay.
15th year.
For 15 years. I've been here 16 years. Why do I feel like you guys are only immersing yourselves?
I can
now?
tell you why.
Oh, thank goodness.
So Speak Up, Reach Out started in 2009, and it was a coalition of different people, different groups, who there had been, at that point, one too many suicides, and they knew personally a lot of people who had died by suicide, and they just came together and said, we have to do something. Like, what can we do? So for many, many years, it was a board of directors, no staff, or it was volunteer staff. We had a volunteer executive director who then became part-time, who then became full-time, and it's only been in the last four or 5 years that there have been additional staff.
Got
So
you.
for a while, it was just there weren't the resources, there wasn't the
was just a name
financing.
out there.
Exactly. And so as we get
How did you
more of
grow?
a budget, well, because through fundraising and grants and partnership with Vail Health.
Nice.
And we partner with All Points North on certain
do?
events. They sponsor a lot of our events, which is amazing.
Oh, yay.
So as the funding and the staffing grows, we can do more, obviously.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's really incredible because it is interesting because I've heard the name and now all of a sudden the action is coming through and that makes me
Right.
really happy. And I know Vail Health has for like 3 years building that facility in Edwards. I feel like it's taking too long. I do. I think we've lost about 10 people since they started building it. What made you
Part
get
of it is open now.
Yay.
Yeah, the Uyghurs clinic is
me,
open
really?
now. It's been open for probably about a year or
Okay,
close
see, now
to a
I
year.
don't know this.
Okay.
So this is
that's
something
where
we
a
need
lot
to
of
get out
their behavioral health appointments take place. Some of the newer therapies and experimental therapies they're going to start doing, those take place at Uyghurs. The way you would find out about that is going through either Vail Health or Colorado Mountain Medical, because they would refer you to those services.
Right.
So those medical entities do know about it to use it for people who need that in the valley.
But they would have to get themselves
You would have to go to
a
your
doctor,
physician and
but there's a
say,
lot of people that
well, a lot of people don't.
right? I
Right,
mean, did you
right.
want to get up and go to a doctor at the time when you were feeling your
No, and for me, it was just like my annual checkup that I went
Yeah.
and just kind of broke down, and then still was just like, nope, don't want to talk about this. Nope,
Right.
I'm fine. And
See,
then
so-
like a week or two later, I was just like, I sent her a
Okay.
message and was just like, you know, things just aren't getting
Yeah.
better. So
and I mean,
And
I
I
don't
was,
think we had
yeah,
we had like 988 at the time where you could
no.
no, we didn't have
No.
that yet. But
No.
what I'm saying is that, so you didn't want to sit in a clinical environment and talk about your
No.
feelings.
I didn't want to talk
And
to
that's
anybody.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I
People
still
have
feel
different
like-
things that help them.
Correct,
Yeah.
right. Like the art
Yeah.
therapy makes me super happy.
Right.
What made you join Speak Up, Reach Out?
I joined because first of all, I've been in the Valley for almost 30 years and worked in hospitality for the vast majority of those.
Wow.
And really, really was unhappy
Oh.
in hospitality towards the end. Bad working environment, I got tired of the
customers.
tourism industry.
The entitlement? Let's see what else.
And for years, I had volunteered through a couple of different nonprofits. I volunteered with Vail Mountain Rescue Group, which is the volunteer search and rescue group, and I was on their board.
Wow, that's
and then
amazing.
I volunteered for Mountain Valley Horse Rescue for a while and joined their board. So I had always wanted to do, if I could move along professionally, like work for a nonprofit.
You have an
And-
altruistic nature.
I do. I love doing it. It gives me purpose. It
I
makes
love that.
me happy.
It's wonderful.
And I'm actually happier working for a suicide prevention nonprofit than I was like at a real job.
Well, don't you feel
which
like
is
you're
telling.
doing more and
Yes.
you're more productive because you feel like,
And we have a great team.
Yeah.
And we prioritize our mental health because we know we're dealing with tough subjects and we have to make sure we're okay so that we can help people in the community. And
Right, you have
we
to
just
be
have a
good
very
yourself
supportive team, which is great, and board. So when COVID hit, I was down to 10 hours a week at my hospitality job. My hours got cut pretty substantially. And I started really looking for new opportunities. And Speak Up, Reach Out was one that came along.
wow.
And I have lost a few people I know to suicide. No one that I was very close with, but one was a friend, one was more of an acquaintance. So I've experienced that loss. I've also struggled with my own mental health. Something that really came out for me during COVID was anxiety.
Wow.
And I'm now seeing a therapist that I have for a few years. I had seen therapists prior to that. The one I have now, I just adore, and she's
Love it.
wonderful and very helpful. And I take medication, and I try to do self-care, which sometimes is hard.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like all of us want a quick fix to any health problem. Like
Sure.
you want to go to the doctor, you want them to give you a prescription for antibiotics if you have a cold. Like we all want we want to fix it now. And with mental health, it takes some trial and error sometimes. And it also,
And
I'm
medicine, too.
I'm on medication and I'm seeing a therapist, but if I start neglecting the things that are good for my wellness, my anxiety creeps up. So I know it's also on me
Yes.
to be doing the coping skills and the
And you
things
can't
that.
help others without
Right.
starting with yourself first anyway.
Right.
Do you think the anxiety was built off fear because of COVID and everything that
It was in part.
Yeah.
And it also makes me wonder, how long had I been experiencing it and not
Right.
really realizing it?
Because it could have been mild and then it
Right.
just exacerbated
And
it came
COVID
to
definitely
the surface.
exacerbated it.
Yeah. Imagine people who have had
And kind of
I had
losing my
anxiety
job
before
hours
COVID.
and yeah, I know.
Watching the TV, just like, oh, you know, like I didn't do very well during
Go in the
COVID.
bathroom.
I would wear a mask to walk my dog. I was like, so scared of everything.
Well, and you know it was so good. One of the best things that came out of COVID is that everyone realized we have mental health. Every one of us has it.
Don't you?
Because we
Yes.
all struggled with the isolation, with the fear of getting sick,
Right.
with losing people that we knew or
Oh my
people in our
God.
community who died after getting COVID. So there was I think that brought so much awareness to like,
struggles.
yeah, this is hard. And imagine if I had a mental illness, how much harder that would be. So I
Absolutely.
feel like that really raised awareness for.
And it raised awareness, but it also brought on new mental health and people that didn't
Definitely,
even
definitely.
either know they had it or maybe it was just kind of like, you know, no big deal. But so I literally feel like the world changed as far as their minds go, and maybe that's why people are a little bit more understanding now and they have more of an open mind, because even if some people went through the depression and anxiety during COVID, when COVID was lifted, they kind of went back to, not everybody, but there's some people that went back to just normal. So these are the people that might have not understood mental illness prior and now might have an idea and have a little bit more compassion,
Right.
and more ideas in their minds that if they know somebody that's struggling, they could see signs, or they can understand, or they can reach out to them and say, I feel like you're struggling. Do you want help? And I know that Speak Up, Reach Out is an amazing organization. How do people know, like, who goes to you? Like, how do they just make a call? Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
because you're for prevention.
We are for
but do
prevention.
people call you guys and say, I'm struggling? Or do you hear about people and go out to the, people? How does this work?
So we're not a crisis response
You're not.
entity or a support line. We are strictly the education and prevention aspect. So really teaching people, these are signs that someone might be struggling. These are risk factors like past trauma, chronic illness, things like that, loss of something, like something that's happening in someone's lives. Because a lot of times you'll hear, well, I didn't see any signs. Well, what was happening in that person's life? Had they just lost a job? Had they lost a relationship? Like, what was going on? So we teach people how to really be aware of all of those things, and then how important it is, if you're worried about someone and you think they might be thinking of suicide, to just ask them about it.
Okay.
Talking about suicide and asking someone about suicide actually reduces suicidal ideation. A lot of people think if you ask someone,
gonna close
they're going to go,
off.
"Oh my gosh, I never thought of that. That's
Right.
that's the solution." No, that is not true at all. So talking about it really brings down levels of impulsiveness. It brings down some of that anxiety, because it's something usually that person's been holding inside that they feel safe getting it out now because you've asked them if they're thinking about it. And you do want to ask it like in a compassionate way, not, oh my God, you're not thinking about suicide, right?
Right.
And we have trainings that can teach people how to do these things. Like, how do you have this conversation? What are some scripts that you can just have ready to go in your head, so that when that tough conversation comes up, because it's not going to be easy, but at least you have some preparation for it, or you know what you might want to say. And then we talk about resources, like what's out there, because your job, and I heard both of you say this too, your job is to listen.
Yes.
To just let somebody talk and to be that safe presence for them. You are not a therapist all of a sudden, and you're not going to fix their problems, which to me is a huge relief, because a lot of times, like, I don't know how to fix your problems, so what do I say? Like, that makes me really uncomfortable. I don't have to solve their problems. I just have to get them to that next step.
Right, because you can be a sounding board and then give them the right
peer support?
resource.
Is it, let's call a support line together? Like, let me get on the phone with you. We've got a local support line, Your Hope Center, which is fabulous. It's staffed by clinicians. It's a 24/7 line. So can I call them with you? Let's talk to a clinician and see how we can help, how we can get started. So we do all of this education awareness. That's that suicide prevention piece. And then we also try to do a lot of things that help with connection, like bringing people together that would feel comfortable talking about mental health issues and suicide and sharing their stories, because that's really important. And on the flip side of like that crisis response, which we don't do, when there is a suicide loss in the community, we then help with, it's called postvention, like making sure all of the like if we know where the person worked, is that workplace set up to support? What do they need? If it was at a school, we had a youth death a couple of years ago, or last year. Like, do they have all the resources that they need? We work closely with Your Hope Center to get that clinical support. So we also help with the suicide loss part. But in the middle of the crisis intervention, that's not what we do. We refer people in crisis to
almost
Your
like
Hope
before
Center,
and after.
to 988. Yeah.
Right.
To those,
so 988
those
is a
medical
number
pieces.
that if you're just at your dark point and you're not sure which way's next, because you're really just thinking, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
The best thing to do is 988. And does that go to the Hope Center, or does that go to our first responders?
No, the way it works is 988, that's the national suicide crisis line. And there has always, or I shouldn't say there has always, that line has existed for a long time, but it was an 800 number you used to have to call. So what they did a few years ago is they changed that number to 988, so it would be very easy to remember, like a 911.
Because you're in the throes and you're like 800.
Well, I know, and you're Googling for the 800 line, like that's not helpful. So that's how 988 came about. And so when you call 988, currently the way it works is it goes off of your area code. So my area code's 970. It would identify me as being in Colorado, which we know is not always the case. Like there's a lot of people who live in our valley who still have, area codes from other
Mine
states.
is not 970.
Yeah. So yours, the way it works, and they are trying to change this to more geolocation, but yours would go to whatever state, or they would identify you as being in that state. And what that does is you can talk to a 988 clinician, and that might be the only person that you talk to. But if you are willing to say, and you can call anonymously too, so you don't have to give your name and I'm here and this is where I am. But if you do, they can then say, oh, so great, you're from Colorado. Would you like to learn some more local resources? Or would you like us to connect you to your local support line?
Gotcha.
So yes, in a sense, you can get to your Hope Center. It would just take a little bit longer. And we try to suggest to people, yes, 988 is great because it's easy to remember. Dial it. You're going to get the help that you need. But if you want local assistance more quickly, call your Hope Center first because that's just quicker. That's a quicker way to get there.
And Hope Center's been here for a very long time. I feel like they are a good touchstone for people. But what I guess is my issue is a lot of people who are in a suicidal state, they're not looking for help. And that's what I guess, right? Am I right? You're not at the moment. I might be wrong, but I feel like they're not really, they're in their own spin out. So they're not rationally thinking, okay, I'm about to do something. Let me make a call. So how do we, I guess, impress upon people that when they start feeling this way to maybe take a step?
Right.
Because it goes from 0 to 50 like that. I mean, I've heard so many people say, oh my God, they were the happiest person. They were filled with joy. They were always making everybody happy. Well, that's the people you kind of gonna.
You still got to check on those people too. Like you need to check on the people you're worried about, but you need to check on everybody.
100%.
That's what it comes down to. That's that connection. That's that, we're all compassionate people. Just paying attention to that and trying to do more of those reach outs and those touchstones. And you have to normalize going, how do you really feel today? Like, what's really going on, and talking about your own story.
Sure.
That makes it a whole lot easier for somebody to open up to you.
Especially if they know that you've been through something too, because we all have. I mean, we've all been through. And if we all became an empathic society, we could all just reach out to each other. I'm not saying you guys don't need to be there, because you do. You need to empower people.
We'd like to go out of business.
Well,
frankly,
sure. Wouldn't that be nice? You
yeah.
know? But, I mean, you want to empower people, you want to educate people, you want to give people resources and things like that. And the art therapy, I think, is amazing, not only for people that are, have suicidal thoughts or anything, depression.
Absolutely.
I mean, my God.
It works with everything.
Right.
It's just a modality that.
Exactly. The only thing I don't think it would work for is anger issues. I could see me working with clay. Boom!
That's the whole point.
Punching my
getting
sculpture.
that energy out. In a healthy manner and in a controlled environment.
All right.
Anger, anything.
I
Art
love
therapy
that.
works.
That is so
There is
major.
something for everything with art therapy.
Unbelievable. Now, do you think that you will only do therapy through APN, or do you think maybe you would like to broaden it through the community?
I would love to broaden it through the community.
That would be amazing.
Because I am part of the community.
You are.
And I've gone through it in the community.
Yes.
And wanting to be able to do both is absolutely amazing. And it's something that we need here. And it's not even, I think a lot of people think when they think art therapy, they're thinking more dealing with youth and adolescents. And the adults actually, I think, because at APN I work with the adults, but they're just like, oh, well, I haven't done this since I was like in 6th grade.
They don't make adult coloring books for nothing.
They look at me a little bit different, but then the joy that they have of just doing it.
I love creating.
Having something to bring back,
I love
to
that.
when they didn't have the depression and anxiety and different things.
Or it
other
even
things.
lightens them up because they
Yes.
see that they've accomplished something fun.
Absolutely,
You know?
absolutely.
Who knew
So
that I could
the-
do a pot, make a pot?
The process for sure is definitely.
I think that's beautiful. I really do. I think it's
Yeah.
lovely. And now, as the four of us sitting here, I feel like talking about this is amazing. You guys are all so brave to come in and talk about that you have mental health issues and what you've been through, what you're going through, and what you're giving back, what you're giving back, and what you're giving back. But we're all still four people sitting here. What do we do? How do we get change to happen?
I mean, I think to me, it's just, we have to break the stigmas down. We have to keep talking about it. I feel like our community is getting better at that. Just really raising awareness as to what resources are, like, and that you can use them before you hit crisis point. You can use them if you're worried about someone. I can't tell you how many people I've referred to your Hope Center who were worried about a friend, wanted to have an intervention because someone was abusing alcohol. And I said, call this number, get some talking points, like kind of talk through it, get some advice. And they got back to me and said, that was so helpful.
Oh
and
my
we
gosh.
talked to that person. So I think just, it's going to come down to awareness. We just have to continue building awareness and building community. That is such a huge thing. And those are things I feel like we have control over. I mean, other things that are really hard about where we live are costs of living, people working multiple jobs so they can afford to be here, not having those connections. So we're not going to solve the financial crisis or housing crisis anytime soon, obviously, because we haven't been able to do that yet.
Yeah, if anything's going to get worse before it gets better.
But working on connection and support systems and letting people know they can talk about it and what the resources are, I feel like those are two huge things we can do much faster.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
That's great.
Yeah.
Just from looking back and thinking back, I remember somebody I used to see what they were writing online. And I reached out to their family member. I was like, I'm worried about so-and-so. Oh, they're fine. If I see it, and I don't even hardly know them, wake up.
Yeah.
Right.
Open your
Absolutely.
eyes, because that person ended up taking their life. And it's like I knew it was going to, it was so weird. It was horrible. And
I'm
it was
sorry.
just
Yeah.
horrible. And I tried reaching out to the one person I knew that was related to that person and just say stuff, and they're like, no, they'll be okay. So denial is not something that any one of us in this whole community or world should accept. Our own deniability or anybody else's deniability. That should not be anything that we have in our brains at all, because if you just listen to one little worry, I'm worried about so-and-so. Maybe if somebody actually heard that and didn't deny it, they went looking into it, maybe there would have been hope. I don't
Right.
know that.
Right.
You know, we don't know what's going to
Right.
happen. We just don't. But it's a trickle-down effect in my eyes. And I feel like if one person senses something is up, and if you don't feel like you can approach that person because maybe you don't know them, or maybe you think that they might come at you, or, you know, whatever. Go to the next person that you feel is closest to them,
it
and
anyway.
Yeah.
hopefully they listen and they hear you. And if they don't hear you, go to someone else, or I don't know. I mean, be brass if you have to. All I know is that I'm not going to watch another person take their life out here. I can't. You see it coming. When you see it coming on, and you want to help, and you know it's going to happen, there's nothing more. Really,
Yeah.
it's just agonizing. It's agonizing.
And there are a lot of people in our community, we just don't hear the stories, that are checking on their friends, that are doing those safety wellness check calls
checks.
With law enforcement, and they're working. Like, things don't always go perfectly. There's always going to be things that we need to improve upon, but like, people are out there doing those things,
That's really
which
nice
is
to hear.
great. And what really gives me hope too is we go into the schools and we do suicide prevention trainings from 5th to 12th grade, and we're in all of the public schools, some of the charter schools, and we go in it once a year. So we're in there once a year. We'd love to be in there more, and actually kids want us to come in more too, but that's tough with just the school district and, you know, all of the different things when it comes to academics. Regardless of that, these kids are open talking about mental illness. They're open to talking about suicide. And so my hope, like, I see the future coming, and I see these kids coming up that are going to be a lot more open than we have been about it, than our
Because we're
generation and
normalizing it.
older. Well, and a lot of times we were hiding it.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
it's amazing to me when I started working for Speak Up, Reach Out, like family members that I did not know who've struggled with mental illness, because all of a sudden I'm the safe person, which I love being the safe person now, but it just never came up.
Right.
And kids now are just much more open about everything like that. And that's really going to help,
That
I
is
think.
important.
They do have a lot of stress and a lot of other problems, but I
Sure.
feel like that aspect is going to be,
The one thing I've
is gonna make
noticed in
some
the high
change.
schools is if there's a child struggling with their orientation, it depends on the school, but there are some
does,
schools that
yeah.
they bully and they beat up and they send them death threats. And then there's other schools that embrace the kids that are struggling with their identity. And that really hurts my heart, because these are high schoolers that either have to be pulled out of their school or they end up in a situation that we're all discussing. And I mean, for people to still think that coming out is a big deal, it's really sad for 2024. And there are
Right.
still kids that are vicious.
Oh,
So
sure.
parents, please teach your children to accept people for who they are. I can't deal with that anymore. And I'm not maternal, so I don't really say, oh, good or bad parenting, because I don't know. But all I know is if I had a kid that was picking on somebody because they were different, which isn't even normal anymore, because everybody's different.
everybody is.
But now
Oh.
you're jumping back on me again, because I just came out like a year and a half
You
ago.
did.
So because of the stigma and everything
Wow.
from growing.
I was looking at
And
your
all
laces,
of those, my
and I was like,
laces.
I feel like
And
she,
socks.
but I didn't know.
my socks, but I got my
Oh my
rainbow
God.
flag.
Oh, nice.
That's beautiful.
So, but it's one of those things of just like, it's a huge deal, and even
As an adult, it
even
was
as
hard.
an adult, it's very
Were
difficult.
you afraid of people either
Absolutely.
like being mean or just not being your friend anymore? Or disassociating with you because of a different change, and you're still the same
So-
damn person.
Yes, and actually, I have had some people not talk to me anymore.
I
So
hate them.
it's still, I mean, it's still,
Where's my
it's still
clique?
one of those things. I mean, I wasn't, anybody that I am close to, it has been fine with.
Thank God.
And, you know, my family and everything else, like, things have been great.
Yes.
But it's still one of those of, like, if just thinking about, like, myself, if I came out when I was in high school,
How would that have
awful
affected?
it would have been
Right.
when I had my depression at 15.
Oh, gosh.
Part of that probably
Would have taken a
part
toll.
of being my orientation.
Do you feel like you were struggling? I hope I'm not getting too personal.
You're good.
You were married, you had kids. but
Yes.
you were suicidal.
Absolutely.
Do you feel like your orientation was like you were confused? Maybe do you feel like that had taken any part? Did you know, or did you
Maybe
struggle?
like on hindsight,
Uh-huh.
like it probably did.
Yeah, but you're not.
But
It wasn't really the forefront of anything.
it's no, and we have a great relationship.
That's
and
wonderful.
like parenting with the kids and.
Oh yeah, no,
you
that
know,
I didn't worry about. But I was wondering if your depression was being brought on because there was a
yes.
little confusion going on.
I would say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that makes
because it's the
perfect
same thing
sense.
of kind of going through my own trauma
Yes.
and you know different episodes that I have and
There's a great organization out here, Mountain Pride.
so I love it.
They're the,
I love
they're
it.
The
So
greatest
They're
people.
awesome.
I love them so much.
Yeah.
They do so.
Maddie and everybody
yeah.
there are just like my peoples, and I just love them so much, and I support them 100%. I go to the drag bingos. I go to all of it. I do. I have so much
Remember we
fun.
did drag shows?
They are fun events.
Yeah.
So fun.
But I mean, I find myself over supportive of people that I feel like people would have a problem with. That's me. I've always been that way. I've always like geared towards the, you know, people that maybe not everybody thinks is the most popular experience. And, you know, and so I feel that we have come such a long way, but we still have such a long way to go. Can you do me a favor and throw those horrible statistics at me? Because I heard almost every 14 days we lose somebody. Is that right?
But like for what? The U.S.
No,
Eagle
here,
County?
locally.
No,
No.
that's not true.
Ha ha.
In
Only gonna
Eagle
tell me the liar.
Eagle County, we tend to the average per year is somewhere in the teens. So like 13, 15. That's usually what we average in a year. I think from. No, I'm not going to say that because I'm going to get it wrong. But anyways, yes, it's somewhere. It's less than 20. There was one year maybe 2018 or 2017 where I think it was more than 20. And that's when like the community started to be like, whoa, like we really need to make some efforts here or start making those efforts. But no, it's not every 14 days.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
That really is good to hear, because like I was stupefied when I heard that. I'm like, I mean, we literally had 2 in one day last week. So it's rampant. It seems to be growing as opposed to halting, and
it's staying the same.
It's
for
staying the
us.
same.
Yeah, I mean, roughly.
Yeah, it just seems to be young people. It's I mean, from what I have witnessed, I haven't, anybody over 40 I've not seen this happen with. It's
Well,
been,
you'd be surprised though,
Really?
because generally the average age and the age group at highest risk is between like 35, 40, and 55.
Wow.
And it's usually men. That's the
that's
highest.
interesting.
The
I have
highest age
noticed
risk.
mostly.
I think you might hear about the younger ones more because, like,
Yeah.
as a community, and especially when we lose someone in our schools,
Right.
like it just gets so much attention
Sure.
as it should. But you don't always hear about the other deaths of other age groups unless you happen to know
I gotcha.
that person or where they worked. Or, you know.
Because it does seem to, and I mean, you know, our media, I'm in media here, and I know that we don't talk about when we hear news. You know, it's always sunshine and rainbows in the paper or on the radio,
and that's come up this week, which has been
It has?
very important because it is not the media's place unless
correct.
unless it's some big public safety issue or actually Nate Peterson, the editor of the Vail Daily, just had an editorial out. It's in the paper today. So unless it's a big public safety story, unless it happened in the jails or unless the family is willing to have a story about it.
Understandable.
So that's why it's not reported on a lot. Like I think the paper does a great job of reporting kind of on suicide in general. And when we send them guest columns and letters to the editor and they write stories about us
Nice.
frequently, which is great. So they're still getting that message out to a degree, but they're not going to report on every single suicide death, which
Makes
they
sense.
shouldn't.
Yes.
And that's the same with Speak Up, Reach Out. Like we're never going to be the ones to announce when we hear about a suicide because one, it's not our place. We need to respect the family's wishes if
Right.
that's something they want to grieve privately. And there's also a lot that goes into the investigation. Was it really a suicide? Like we're not going to start spreading rumors, which happened
you
this
have
week.
to have the facts anyway, and it's
yeah.
very, very sketchy in that order. Like I do, I'm on the radio here, and all I want to do is bring levity, you know. And I don't do the news. And when we do the news, it is solid. And we don't have any no guessing games.
right.
If we heard about a missing kid, but we're not really sure what's really going on, we do not bring it up because it's irresponsible.
Right.
It's just irresponsible. I do feel like there should be some sort of newsletter or something that people can go to so they can see what's going on and they can get the reality check that they need. And if the 4 of us can just spread the word that we need to look out for each other, and I can also say empathic people are not just magical unicorn creatures. They are traumatized people that are trying to help people. Look at all 4 of us right here, okay? So people have to check in on us too.
Yes.
And that's what's really important because we are strong and we've made it. We've done a damn good job of it and we are here to help other people. I mean, what I've seen you go through, I'm surprised you're still here, okay? But I'm super happy you're still here and I love you. And I love all of you now. You're like my new friends and I'm so proud of you that you got through 2 times that you wanted to do this. And you're sitting here, and now you are turning your life around, not only for yourself, but you're giving back. That's huge. It's a beautiful thing. It really is. And you're there every day, and you just take calls, and you educate people. And I didn't know you go into the schools and stuff. I think that's really important because sometimes what we learn at home is not what we need to really hear.
Right.
You know, because they shelter you at home a lot. You know, I'm not blaming anybody on anything.
Well,
but
it's
when
a
you,
hard topic to talk about.
Of course it is.
And I think
Would you rather talk about it before than after?
Exactly. And like you two sharing your stories, and I know your kids have seen this too, and we talk about this a lot. Like kids need to know, because I think kids, they're on social media, they see the best of the best. People are always curating their images. And what we hear a lot actually is kids don't understand life is hard. Yet most of us get through it. Like, we're all going to go through hard things. And when you are examples of that, and you're saying, yeah, I'm having a tough day and it sucks, but I'm going to go for a walk because it makes me feel better. Like, when people can be that example for their kids and show them
It's normal to have days.
It's normal to have bad days. It's normal to go through something really, really hard, big trauma or little trauma.
Doesn't
you know
matter.
what I mean?
Yes.
But you are stronger than you think. I tell myself that a lot. And we are. We are all stronger than we think.
We're all still sitting here talking
We
about
just
this.
need to get that message through so that people understand, like, you're not alone. We all go through this. It's the human
Exactly.
experience.
We only have like 5 minutes left. I want each one of you to take a moment and say something that you think would be important for somebody to resonate.
Always be willing to listen.
I love that.
Everything you're doing, everything you're doing.
No matter what you're
You get
doing.
a phone call, you have an idea, stop whatever you're doing.
I like that. That's nice. What about you?
Except like driving down the interstate. You would.
I would. I would just do a Huey right there. What do you have for advice?
I would say just like pay attention to your spidey sense and your intuition,
Yes.
because that is something that we could be talking about the exact same thing, but something just might be off.
That's right.
And that little something could save somebody's life.
And I think we all have that power within us to notice it. Some people
It's
don't.
energy. It's all about energy.
It is.
Total energy. I'm so glad you said it, because that's how I feel. I mean, I can walk by somebody and feel that they're going through something weird.
Yeah, like, get away from
And then
me.
sometimes I've asked them, and they're like, I've had a stranger hugging me on the sidewalk one time because I just felt something was wrong with them, and I asked. But I felt better
Yeah.
because they
That's
cried
good.
and they held me, and I don't know who they are, and I've never seen them again. And sometimes
No, that's
I don't
great.
mind. I don't mind. And what would you like to say to people?
I love that you said spidey senses, because
Yeah.
we say that a lot in the schools.
Oh,
like,
you
pay
do?
attention to your spidey senses.
I love that.
For me, it's that a lot of people feel alone in going through what they're going through, whether it's suicidal thoughts, mental illness, some other kind of trauma or something that's happened, and you're not alone. Like, your experience is certainly unique, but I guarantee you somebody else has been through a similar trauma, similar thoughts, similar experiences, and they've gotten through it. So just, I think, knowing that you're not alone, and if you don't feel like you have someone to talk to, that's when you reach out to 988 or your Hope Center.
Right.
Because there are people, like there's us, there's tons of organizations in our community for a variety of different needs. There are people who care. There is always going to be someone who cares about you and wants you to get better.
I love that.
So just know that, and don't
That's
feel bad
big.
reaching out.
Thank you for that. And I have one final thing. There is absolutely no shame
No.
in feeling depressed or self-loathing or self-unacceptance or depression or anxiety or suicidal thoughts. Please, nobody ever feels shame, because it's all encompassing in our worlds, and we all go through so much in life that if there's times where we really feel like we're gonna do something, that's when we have to speak out and reach out and let somebody know that we're struggling, so we can save ourselves and we can also maybe save somebody else. And I think that's the most important thing. And I think that if we all stick together as a wonderful community, because you all are just amazing. I'm an energy person. I'm just like, my hair's been up like this the whole conversation. I'm just getting so much from you three amazing ladies. I want to thank you so much for your bravery, your stories. And I know that we've connected with somebody. Even if there's one of you out there that is watching this that feels connected, you can always reach out to somebody. 988, the Hope Center, Speak Up, Reach Out, and then art therapy and friendship, anything. It's all right here at our fingertips, and we all do have somebody, and you're not a weak person. You are a strong person for reaching out and seeking help. That is not a weakness. It is a strength. And when we all really just get a grip on that, we realize we are all strong. We are all connected. We are all the aspen trees underneath everybody. We're all here to take care of each other and be family. So let's just stay connected and take care of each other.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for being here. You guys, this is
Thank you.
This is my most bestest chat box ever. I'm really happy, you guys. Thank you for being here. The chat box likes to focus on mental health and emotional issues, and today having you three here has really connected with me, my heart, and I know so many other people. So Debbie, Sherry, Lissy, thank you so much for being here. Please reach out and please get connected with anybody here or anybody that you know that can just lend you a hand. We appreciate that. Live from YouTube and the TV8 studios, we are the Chat Box Live right here in Vail.